So, hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Show and Tell, a podcast about movies. Or movies that Jesse hasn't seen.
And movies you haven't seen that no one else wants to see.
But I wanted to see this movie, at least. The movie we watched today was Stay, of course.
Stay. My name is Jesse Hughes, by the way.
And I'm Daniel Gilmore.
Dan, I'm going to let you take it away. This was my recommendation, Stay. What'd you think?
So Jesse recommended Stay, the 2005 film directed by Mark Forster.
Mark Forster.
Oh, Forster.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so the movie opens with a car crash, but it's sort of POV from a tire?
Yeah, right.
And I thought that was a very weird opening shot.
I remember the first time I saw the movie, I still thought we were finding out the studios involved in the film during the tire shot.
I did wonder about that too, because it goes from the WB, and I was like, this is a weird thing that I've never seen from...
Right.
Whatever company that would be.
And then it keeps going. You're like, oh, I'm watching the movie. Okay.
Yeah. Because that was kind of funny that I did have that same initial thought. Yeah, I just thought that was like a very kind of strange opening shot to have, though. I don't know if it was POV, like I said.
Right.
If I don't know if it's him or if it was the tire or
right.
the car crash. But obviously you're seeing a car crash.
Okay. Yeah.
I grasped that immediately.
Right.
When I realized that wasn't.
Of course. Yeah.
And what's a blown out tire?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So real quickly, we'll just recap. We're assuming everyone who is listening to the show has watched the movie. If you haven't, spoiler alerts. The last episode, obviously, you could watch the movie after listening to us talk about it and still enjoy it. This episode, this movie is very contingent on like knowing what's going on the whole time. So a lot of what we're going to talk about has to do with the ending and the reveal of what's going on. So
or not knowing.
Or not knowing, exactly.
And then it cuts to... Ryan Gosling sitting on a bridge, I guess, or the road, and he's
the Brooklyn Bridge,
bleeding from his head.
Right.
And then there's a very strange transition / facial morph,
right,
which cuts to Ewan McGregor.
Right.
And so this is where I knew the ending of the movie.
Okay.
I was like, oh, okay, so I'm pretty sure I know the ending. It's one of two things, and I was correct.
So go ahead. I mean, what was your thought at that time? Like, what do you think? Here's what's going on, and here's what's going to happen.
Okay, so you see a car crash,
right,
and so in my head, it's one of two things. It's he is dead or dying, and then or he is now Ewan McGregor, and Ewan McGregor like identity crisis kind of thing.
Right.
He may or may not be Ewan McGregor.
And in a lot of ways, that both of those are true. Like it's really true, and the whole movie is essentially a dream. Mm-hmm. The whole movie is essentially these random brain firings, basically, that he's having as he's dying. Everything we see in the movie is like the last 20 seconds of his life. So that, like you talking about the facial transition, is one of the first things that I love about the film is the transitions in the movie. Like this film for me was the essence of what a dream is like in film for me before Inception came out. Like, kind of like Inception is the movie where people are like, oh yeah, that your dreams, this is how it works. For me, it was this movie. And part of that is the transitions. Throughout the entire movie, every transition is like this instant, really seamless. And that's how a dream works. We don't fill in the empty space with driving from, when I wake up and then I'm at work. Yeah. I wake up and then I'm at work. I don't drive to work when I'm in a dream. So that's the way this movie works, and that's why I love all the transitions, because there's so much variety in them.
So then, we'll go back to where we were. Ewan McGregor walks into the office. Ryan Gosling comes in. He's a fill-in psychiatrist.
Right.
Immediately, Ryan Gosling is just a huge dick.
Well, he's clearly a depressed kid, and there's something going on with him that we don't know about. There's a darkness to him, basically, and he is not trusting of Ewan McGregor's character Sam, because he has replaced his psychiatrist, whom he has. And so the symbolism here is at the scene of the accident, at the end of the movie, the last few minutes of the movie, the first person there is Janine Garofalo's character. I can't remember her name exactly. So that's why she was the original psychiatrist, and then Sam comes in, and he's the second guy. So he's the second guy to come in, and immediately Ryan Gosling doesn't trust him because he has replaced the first person at the scene.
And then just the line I thought was funny, because he's like, "I've read your file."
Yeah, that's another thing like that I have on my notes is the dark humor of the movie. It's like every once in a while you laugh and you're like, oh, I didn't expect that. That's what I loved about, like, that was one of the I thought you read the file is the first quote I have. That's just something you just kind of chuckle at when you're watching the movie. That's what I like, the rhythm of the movie, because it has just enough humor, even though the subject matter is really dark and kind of sad. It has just enough humor that you're laughing every so often.
Yeah, well, that's good. Like, that's good writing. And I have a note on here too that just says I should be taking more notes.
You too.
Because I was watching,
Well,
I was definitely like getting kind of involved in the movie,
Right,
Because there's so many cuts and stuff. You're trying to keep up with it, and at the same time, it was like a really solid film in how it was shot and made and written, where there wasn't anything like glaring that I was like, oh, I need to make note of this to talk about.
And that was something like so when I started the movie, I had my laptop and I'm taking my notes. I type faster than I write, so I'm doing everything on a laptop. I'm taking constant notes pretty much through the first half because I know what happens in the movie. So I'm taking notes based on new observations, based on what I know about how the movie's going to end. And then halfway through the movie, I realized, actually, it was closer to the end of the movie, I realized I've taken like 3 notes in the second half of the movie. And it's like you said, it's a very involving film, and you just kind of get drawn into it, which is one of the things I love about it. But then just going back to the fact that I'm typing so much at the first half, you notice so many different little things every time you watch the movie. I've seen it more than...
Yeah, and I definitely could see that about this movie.
Right.
Skipping a few scenes ahead, he confronts Bob Hoskins' character and puts his hands over his eyes, and I'm just like, did he just cure blindness?
He did.
Which, again, like it being a dream or, whatever in his head, it completely makes sense.
The moment where he cures his supposed father of blindness is the moment where his character realizes, Henry, we're talking about Ryan Gosling's character, realizes that he is in control of what's happening because he is the creator of the world that he's living in. So he realizes, at this point where I know I'm losing my grip on my life, I can do what I want. So he heals his father of blindness so that he can see him one last time. And it's this really touching scene that's a little confusing if you don't know what's going on in the film. But when you rewatch it, you realize he's opening himself up to the fact that he has control in this world, even though it won't be here much longer. And then in the later scene where Bob Hoskins talks about, Henry had it right all along, the world is illusion. His character, Leon is his name, is realizing that Henry is the one in control of the world. And by that point, they're interspersing scenes of Lila, who is also realizing that he's in control of the world. Because
she's hanging art that says his name, as far as Henry Latham on it.
Art she supposedly made says his name on it. So she realizes everything I do is his. I am his. And then she's in a panic trying to go and find Sam to tell him what's going on.
He confronts him on the bridge. They're on the Brooklyn Bridge, like you said.
Right.
And he says, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. I'm just got to let go and wake up. And he says, but, you're real. And then he shoots himself in the head.
Right.
And then it cuts to the car accident.
And then this is the reveal.
As like the doctor going over him. Janine Garofalo's over there saying, I was the first one here. I'm the witness. I already called the ambulance or whatever, the emergency vehicles. And then they kind of show everybody else intermittently, sparse throughout the crowd and stuff. The guy reading with her for the Hamlet scene.
Right.
And, stuff like that.
And their dialogue is kind of peppered throughout these last 5 minutes of the movie so that you realize why their dialogue seems so out of place throughout the film in the dream, because they're lending this dialogue to this accident scene, and it's kind of melting into his dream experience that he's having as he is slowly dying. And the one thing, like in that end scene, that's pretty just strikes me as really awful is when Sam walks over after checking the pulse of all the victims and says, they're gone. You never want to say that, of course, to the surviving victim who is slowly dying, that
he
everyone
says that
else
more
has
to
died.
Naomi Watts' character too, doesn't he, though?
Right, but he says it, in such a way that Henry hears him. It's clear that he hears him. He closes his eyes and a tear falls down his cheek. But that in defense of that line, in defense of it, that a doctor probably wouldn't say that in front of the victim that's dying. It really, the whole movie itself, the experience itself, was contingent on him knowing that
Everybody's
he was
dead,
supposedly responsible for the death of his parents and the death of his
because
fiance.
he mentions it. He blames himself for the death of his parents.
Right.
It cuts to Ewan McGregor's character, and he asks Naomi Watts out to get coffee or something like that, or whatever he says. And I was like, they show like flashes of what was going on. I'm like, is he remembering this?
See, I went onto a message board right after, and a lot of people asked that, and my response was no. The images that are flashed across the screen are for us. They're for the viewer to show, what if? It's not they're going to end up together because of Ryan Gosling's character. It's really just a what if. What if they ended up together as a result of this? The coincidence of that they were together in Ryan Gosling's dream, and then them ending up together in real life. You know, it's kind of a what if, and it's kind of a cool way to end it. You know, because the ending of the movie really is very sad. Henry dies. His whole family's already dead. Mark Forster wants to end it on a positive note, and I think he did a pretty good job of that, you know. Okay, so in my notes, as I'm taking notes, I'm taking it from a totally different perspective, as someone who's watched this movie several times. And
and exactly, and that's what this is all about anyway.
Right, and has picked up on things that maybe I missed, or picked up again on things that I love about the film. One thing I picked up this time is really the beginning of the film tells you exactly what's going on. The film really wears its heart on its sleeve. It isn't really trying to hide anything, so it's creating itself for the person who wants there to be a twist ending that they didn't see coming, and it's creating itself for the person who already knows what's going to happen at the end, and is along for the ride. But the ride itself is so good in this movie. So there's a lot of movies with twist endings, like The Sixth Sense. Without the twist ending of The Sixth Sense, it's an okay horror movie. For me, like, the not being able to predict the ending, like, you can put two and two together. For me, I think it's based on how many movies I've seen and how many bad movies I've seen. Of course, you take your pick of the litter. I've seen a lot of bad movies. So
I have too, sir.
An example of a movie that I've seen that had a twist ending I didn't expect because it was bad is the first Saw. And I love the first Saw because of the ending. I think the ending ties it all together and makes the whole movie really compelling. And I didn't see it coming the first time I saw the movie, because the movie really is bad. Like, the acting is bad, the dialogue's not great. It's just kind of this B horror movie, but the ending really makes it. And I didn't see it coming because I've seen so many bad movies, and I thought it was just another bad movie that really didn't have a point to it. But the ending was the point. So then going back to the movie, the second thing I typed, transitions are brilliant. Henry personifies Sam as himself in the beginning of the movie for two reasons. One, because he is, they mention halfway through the movie, Sam says, you're the one who can save me. I'm sorry, Henry says, Sam, you are the one who can save me, because he is the one at the accident who's taking charge. But then another reason that he's personified himself as Sam is because Sam is alive and well, and he has this female counterpart who is helping him in this situation. So he's personified himself and his future fiance as these two characters because they are alive and well, and he wants them to experience the love that he's experiencing. All of the interactions throughout the film are influenced by what's going on in the real world. There's really no fluff. So if you go back and watch the movie, literally everything that happens, you can trace it back to what's going on at the end of the movie. And what's going on at the end of the movie lasts about 5 minutes. I should time it, but it lasts about 5 minutes. What's really cool about the movie is it's an hour 40, so an hour and a half of that is, I know that math is wrong, but credits. An hour and a half of that movie is on 5 minutes of what's actually happening, and all of it pertains to what's happening in the real world. There's not any dialogue that's just thrown in to, like, okay, fill this spot in so that we have a long enough movie. Some of the people that I watch the movie with are constantly commenting on how short Sam's pants are. And it's something that after watching the movie several times, I thought maybe it's because Sam is crouching throughout the movie, and so Henry sees him as crouching, and when you crouch down with pants on, they kind of ride up. Yeah. Small little detail, it's kind of weird. Like, I probably wouldn't have done it that way as a director.
I never noticed that watching that, so again, like, on a repeat viewing, maybe I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, watch him sitting with Naomi Watts in the first scene where they're sitting down and she's drawing a picture of him. His pants are, like, almost up to his knees. And they're clearly pants.
Yeah.
He's not wearing capris. He's at work. So I was on IMDb, and I was reading the trivia, and one of the pieces of trivia says yellow is a constant theme in the movie, but then it doesn't say why. So that really annoys me. So
I did see a lot of yellow in the movie.
A lot of scenes are tinged yellow, which is kind of something that director Steven Soderbergh does a lot, which I think is kind of a mark of his directing. But in this case, I kind of want to know, like, his pants are yellow. There's yellow in that scene. I kind of want to know if it's a theme or if it's just a color that Mark Forster happens to like.
Yeah, I wonder, because I mean, I've done like a lot of reading just about yellow in itself for writing purposes. So that would be interesting to hear that.
What it like? Does it have
just like what it represents and stuff? But necessarily like the themes in this movie, I don't know would match up to what that theme would be.
Right.
Like, I think it was like excess and that kind of thing.
Right.
And like plague.
Okay.
Which I don't, like I said, I don't know if that necessarily
not cowardice, like Back to the Future.
Well, you could look at yellow like that too, though. I mean, like I said, there's so many ways you can interpret something versus what it actually means,
right?
Or like why you did that. Because I could say, oh, I did it red, and you could say red for anger, but I'm like, no, it was red for love or hate or literally anything.
Touche. Yeah.
So I said you could literally make something for one reason, you could interpret it any other way. So.
Right. On that note, like talking about themes, that really the theme of the movie I think is interesting is guilt. Henry is constantly feeling guilt, and that's again as a result of finding out at the accident that he is responsible. I mean, he feels like he's responsible
because he even says it's not your fault; it was a blown tire.
Exactly. So throughout the film, Sam is telling him, you know, this isn't you. You don't have to feel this way. And then in the accident, he's telling him the same thing. He's saying, this is not your fault. You blew a tire. And I think that's a really cool redemption line at the end of the movie is finding out this actually wasn't his fault, even though any of us in that situation would feel guilty as the driver of the car. But for us as viewers, finding out that it wasn't his fault, that it was a blown tire or something in the road, or maybe the tire needed maintenance and maybe it was his dad's fault.
Yeah, who knows whose car it was?
Who knows? Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. All of the scenes between Sam and Naomi are really touching to me. They have a really touching relationship. There's obviously some tension there and some things that one isn't willing to talk about with the other and vice versa. But in all, there's love there, and it's kind of, again, Henry's personification of what he wants with his girl in the real world has pulled this into his dream. The line where she is distraught at feeling like she won't be remembered, and Sam is constantly telling her, you know, the world will remember you. Whatever you want, this is what you get. I think that's a really touching scene. Where,
and then he immediately says, "Take off your clothing."
And then he says, "Yeah," and then so that scene, you know, that line is kind of like, well, that was kind of abrupt. But then she has this coy little, you know, she averts her eyes and then gives him this little smile. So it's like, okay, that, you know, it's okay for him to say that in this relationship.
Which I didn't think it wasn't.
Which is cool,
but I just thought it was funny. Because, like, oh, yeah, everybody will remember you if that's what you want to hear.
Right.
Also get naked.
That's the best relationship.
Well, yeah.
So there's a scene, what I think is really cool is the way they fill in empty space in this movie. So we kind of talked about how there are repeating characters. So you have the piano man is his landlord. You have the guy on the train that told him to stop smoking is also the bookshop owner, is also something else I can't remember. The empty spaces of the movie are really filled in with all these extra characters, and there's one scene where the camera is this happens very seldom, but the camera is far removed from the main characters on the screen. It's Sam and Henry having a conversation walking through a hall full of, you know, stairs, and all of the characters around them are triplets or doubles of the same person. So you have like three women carrying the same suitcase with the same suit on, which I think is a cool something you don't think about in dreams is that you fill in all this empty space. You don't remember the empty space, so you kind of fill it in.
Well, and it's the same thing too when he's in the theater and they're going down like the winding spiraling staircase and he like loses sight of Athena. And he looks down, it's just like a never-ending spiral.
Right.
But then he like falls, and then he's like back at the beginning of that part of the dream.
I love Naomi Watts' line when they're talking about the patient, when she realizes that. So this is after Naomi's character Lila has figured out that Henry wants to kill himself, and this is why Sam won't talk to her about it, because she's attempted to commit suicide. So she talks about it from her perspective, because
when she tried to kill herself,
right? Yeah. He says, you know, I treat patients all the time who have symptoms that I've never experienced myself. So this is why I think I can help Henry. And she tells a story about the time she tried to kill herself and taking 2 razors, because if she was going to drop one, she didn't want to leave herself half done, so she'd have a second razor. And then the line, can you imagine hating your life so much that you want to bring a backup razor? Like, that really cuts. Like, that's a tough line, and I thought that was a really cool one. And then after that, where she's trying to give some peace to Sam, she tells him, tell him that there's too much beauty to quit. I think that's just a great line. There's too much beauty to quit.
That's one of my favorite lines.
Right. Coming from someone in the film who tried to quit, that's a really beautiful line. There's one scene that I always tried to figure out why it was in there, and this time watching the movie, I was finally able to put a meaning to it. When they're walking down the stairs in the apartment complex, after he walks out of his apartment and Henry finally appears.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're walking down the stairs as Sam is telling him, hey, I met your mother, I met your dog. And Henry's saying, no, they're both dead. Yeah. There's a scene where the transition is there's a bystander who walks into his apartment, and then the camera follows that bystander into his apartment, and he closes the door, and then we witness him closing the blinds.
Yeah, he's watching him through the blinds.
Right. That scene was always weird to me, like as far as transitions go. Every scene can kind of be explained, but that one I always had a hard time figuring out why it was in the film. But this time I kind of figured it was to represent the indifference of everyone but Sam at the crime scene. Mm-hmm. So Sam is there to save him, and that's the theme of that whole scene is Henry revealing to Sam, you're the one who can save me. That's why I'm here again. That's why I keep coming to you. The guy who walks into his apartment represents everyone else who's kind of a rubbernecker, who's there because he stopped traffic and they just want to see what's going on. Wrapping up our discussion of the film, I would say, based on your critique, you might give it I'm going to say 3 out of 5 stars.
I was going to say 4.
Oh, damn. That's what's up.
I was trying to play it coy, and it worked.
You worked, yeah. Sneaky little bastard.
Yeah. No, I thoroughly did enjoy the movie. I thought it was really good. There was definitely flaws, but every movie has its flaws. I don't think I've ever seen a perfect movie, unless you have a suggestion.
I wouldn't change anything about this movie. I wouldn't change anything about my top 5, and we'll probably get into that at some point, episode 10 or 20 or something like that. But I wouldn't change anything in this film. There are movies that I could say I recommend this movie to some people. I don't recommend this movie to everybody. So most of the
I could see why not.
Right, exactly. So I wouldn't say it's a perfect movie for everybody, but I can say there's a perfect movie for me, and this is one of them.
And what would you have rated this movie though?
5. Yeah, 5 out of 5.
Just 5 out of 5?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Love this movie. I won't always recommend movies from my top 5, top 10, but this is one, like my top 5. My top 10 even is mostly movies that everyone's seen, so everyone's already going to have an opinion. Mm-hmm. This is one movie that I know a lot of people haven't seen, so it's one that I'm comfortable in recommending.
Next week, I would like to share, maybe bring a comedy into this.
All right.
Like a legitimate comedy. Maybe or maybe not. Depends. Did you like Napoleon Dynamite at all?
Love Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay, so you'll probably end up liking this movie, I think, then. It's Gentlemen Broncos from 2009.
Okay.
Directed and written by the same guy. Jared Hess. Was that
oh, really? Okay. Awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. A bunch of names that you'll recognize in it when you watch it. I won't spoil anything for you.
We were talking the other day that we're kind of lamenting the moment where we have to completely disagree on a movie, and I hope it happens because it's going to be a really cool discussion, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I'm not really worried about it because we have pretty similar tastes. But if you don't like something, there'll be a reason you don't like it.
Right, and then we'll stop being friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course. No, so thank you for listening. This has been Show and Tell, Episode 2. My name is Jesse Hughes.
And I'm Daniel A. Gilmore.
Thank you.
Ooh.